One of the biggest mistakes I see guys make in dating is that they ask too many questions. Now, it's kind of understandable because we learned as guys that we should show interest in women. We always hear women say that they like a guy who cares about them and who's interested in them. So that kind of is the default we fall back on whenever we don't really know what to say. And also what happens many times when we ask a lot of questions, at some point we find a common topic that we both like, and then we can talk about that topic, and all of a sudden the otherwise boring or platonic conversation can turn a lot more interesting. The risk with asking a lot of questions is that it turns into an interview, and that is bad for multiple reasons. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to achieve the same outcome in a better way, how to avoid all of the pitfalls of asking too many questions, and ultimately how to have a much better conversation with the girls that you meet. Now, first of all, let's talk about why it's such a big deal when you ask too many questions. And we're going to get into the specific solutions after, and while elaborating those solutions, I will dig a little deeper on what happens on an emotional level when you ask too many questions. But let's first of all look at it from a very superficial level. When you ask too many questions without adding your own part to the interaction, you put all of the burden of the interaction on the woman. And that signals, in a way, a lot of insecurity. It signals inexperience, and these are not traits that you want to portray as a man. That's just the foundation. Now, the funny thing is that most of us are great at having a conversation in the other parts of our life, right? When it comes to work, when it comes to our friendships, when it comes to family, we can have a conversation. We can oftentimes even have a fun conversation. But in that area that matters for our love life, for building connections with people that we care about, for meeting the women that we want to have in our life, oftentimes we're in our head, we're overthinking, we're worrying, what should I ask her? What should I say next? And then we often don't know what to say or what to ask next. So we fall back to our default asking these boring interview style questions. Okay, so let's have a chat about how you can actually fix that. And what I'm going to do is I'll give you a framework. It's the framework that I use for myself and that I use with my clients. And you can fall back on that framework whenever you have to. You don't have to fall back on it, but you can. Now, I call it the SAQ method of playful escalation, and we'll get to why I call it that in just a moment. This framework is super easy to apply because basically it's just a foundation with two levers that you can pull. You can apply this anytime because it's so simple. And the way we're setting the foundation here is that we're going to switch away from asking just questions, and instead we're going to use the SAQ method. And the SAQ method basically stands for statement or assumption followed by a question. So rather than just asking a question, whenever you want to ask a question, you're going to start first by making a statement. So sharing something from your own life, or making a statement about something, or making an assumption about something, and then only then you're following it up with a question. Or if you've already asked the question and she's answered it, rather than following up with the next question, you make a statement or an assumption after the response to that question came. Now, this will establish much more of a conversation, and it opens space for a lot more interaction to happen. Again, the goal of asking questions, especially when we don't really know what to talk about, this usually happens when there's not a real vibe between you and the other person yet. So it feels a little bit forced, like forced small talk. And if you want to get out of it, the best way to do it is reaching a level where there's just a topic that clicks between the two of you. And you can hypothetically just do it by asking questions until she talks about something or says something that interests you in a way where the interaction just escalates automatically. Or you can do it in a smoother way by kind of making this forced small talk more interesting by just sharing yourself. The more you share, the more assumptions you make, the more statements you make, the more information you add into this basically pot. You can really think of it like this pot that's in the middle. She's gonna add to it, you're gonna add to it, and if you're doing a good job, you're gonna maintain that almost forced or boring small talk until there's one interesting spark that gets added to this pot by either one of you, and the two of you can click on that, and now there is a topic that you connect on. And once you have the topic, the interaction will start flowing and start becoming a lot more interesting and a lot more easygoing. So that is the goal, and you do it by adding on to these boring questions, by sharing things yourself, by making assumptions about her, making assumptions about the environment, And we're gonna talk about the first lever you can pull now, because the first lever is a way for you to make this a little bit more interesting. But before we do this, let's talk about something that many people worry about, and that is, what if I make an assumption, or I say something, or I make a statement that offends her, that she disagrees with? Well, whenever that happens, don't falter, just stick with it. If you say something that you really believe or that you have a reason to make an assumption about, it's totally acceptable. No need to take a step back. If you did offend her, you can always clarify. You can always say, hey, I didn't mean it like that. Hey, I think there's a misunderstanding. Hey, that was just a joke. I'm sorry. Take a step back and then continue the interaction, right? Don't dwell on it. Don't let it affect your emotional state. Don't let it affect what you think about yourself. If you speak your truth, if you say things that you really believe in, if you say things that are factually accurate from your observation and another person gets offended, that is not your responsibility. As a man, stick to what you believe in. Okay, the first lever you can pull if you want to make things more interesting, and it's a very easy concept, is using hypothetical scenarios. Rather than making statements and asking questions about things that are observable in reality, in the real world, you make an observation about her, you make an assumption about her based off something you see. You ask her something completely hypothetical. It can even be completely out of the blue. Something like, what would you do if ... What would you have done if ... What did you want to do when you were a child? Hypothetical question. For example, I like to ask people what they wanted to do when they were kids, what they wanted to do when they grow up, how they imagine their life to be like. Questions that turn the whole interaction a bit more playful. One thing I often hear people worry about is, if you're older, can you still do this? And the answer is absolutely. There is a difference between having a very serious interview style interaction or date, or a date where both sides can kind of relax, have fun, and be a bit more playful. Just think about how you are with your friends. Even 60-year-old men, when they're with their friends, they're having fun. Even 60-year-old women, when they're with their friends, they're having fun. So why should there not be a little bit of fun vibe between the two of you, even if both of you are already in your 90s, whatever, right? Make it fun, make it a little bit more playful. Think about something that's more fun, just to throw it in there and basically relax the whole vibe, maybe make it a bit more playful. Now, before sharing the second lever, let's talk briefly about why making the vibe playful is such a power move. It can really make or break a conversation. It can really make or break a relationship when there is this relaxed, playful vibe. And the reason is actually quite simple. If the vibe is very serious, like these interview style meetings, it really feels like you're just getting to know each other and it's very predictable. A great date, this man to woman interaction, the big difference here between a date and a job interview, for example, is that the date should have a little bit of tension. In the job interview, ideally, you want somebody that seems like he might be a good fit. He's going to be doing things you want from him. He knows what he's doing. In a job interview, it's very different from the date. In the date, you want a little bit of tension. You want it to feel not 100% smooth sometimes. You want her to feel at ease around you. You want her to be able to relax, and making it playful helps with that. But you also want her to feel a little bit of excitement. And that excitement often comes from her not being able to fully predict what comes next. If the whole interaction feels like a job interview, it becomes very predictable. And that on an emotional level will feel very flat very, very quickly. The best way to avoid it is by adding things that are just completely unpredictable. So throw in a hypothetical, or now we're coming to the second lever, challenge the girl playfully. Now you will find 100,000 videos on YouTube on how to challenge girls, and I find a lot of these videos very cringe and very difficult and abstract to implement unless you're 16 years old. So I'll give you one specific technique that you can apply that will never really come across as cringe. And again, if you ever say something that comes across the wrong way, just take a step back, say, hey, I'm sorry, I was kidding, and then move on. Now, the thing you're going to do is whenever she asks you a question, rather than giving her the answer right away, you're going to tease her by just saying something random. And it can be completely over the top. That can really be your lens through which you look at it. So you're going to say something completely over the top, and then the next thing you're going to do is she will laugh about it, and only then, and that's an important part, you will actually give her the real answer. But by creating this unpredictable BS answer, you basically create this emotional spark. Something unexpected happened, it makes her laugh, it relaxes the interaction, it's kind of unpredictable, it adds some spiciness to the interaction, and then you give her the real answer and continue the interaction. That's the easiest way to make an interaction more playful on top of asking these hypothetical questions. So you have two tools now that you can use at any time. One final note on these tools. Don't overdo them, right? You don't want to be the guy who's asking, what would you do if 20 times per hour? And you don't want to be the guy who never gives an answer at all. So use it, but use it as a tool. Don't use it as a crutch that you use 24/7. Somebody asks you a question, answer them the question if it seems appropriate to just answer right away. Sometimes give them some BS, make them laugh, make it funny. If you think of something funny to say. If not, then just go back into giving a normal answer and go back into your foundation of answer, question, statement, assumption. The foundation is so great because if you have the foundation down, that's all you need. And the other tools come as a bonus. They help you. They make it easier on you. They allow you to make it more relaxed. They allow you to make it more playful, but you don't have to have them. They are always a bonus. That's it for today's video. As always, thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed to the video, hit the subscribe button. Any question, hit me in the comment box below, and I'll see you in one of my next videos.